Thank you all for joining in. I want to take 20, 25 minutes to share with you one more way to work happy, one more idea. I recently gave my second TEDx talk in Seattle over the weekend, and it was about how to take a compliment. Over the years growing up, I didn't know how to take a compliment. And I've learned, and the person who taught me was one of my heroes, Billy Joel. If you haven't met me or if you don't know me yet, my name is Greg Kettner. I started WorkHappy the first month of COVID because I lost my job. I used to do stand-up comedy, and I was talking to my wife and wondering, what am I going to do? She said, what would you do if you could do anything? I said, I'd love to go back to doing stand-up comedy, but when you're married, that job doesn't support you financially and you're on the road a lot. So she suggested that I help other people work happy because I've typically been optimistic, enjoyed my job. I do speaking for events and organizations like I did with Ryan's organization. I also do training, the 9 steps on how to work, one of them which I'll share today. And I coach people from time to time, people who want to have either more happiness in their own organization or for themselves. And finally, I do podcasting as well. Again today, thank you for joining. And I'll jump right in. Growing up, I had a wonderful life. My parents always taught me to say please and thank you, but they never really taught me how to accept a compliment. I remember one of the first times that really stood out. I was with my dad in the hardware store. We were remodeling our house, and he was talking to the salesman. And like any other 12-year-old, was running around the store, looking at all these different tools and gadgets and wood, dreaming of what I could build for my room. And I was in one corner where all the nails were, and I saw these really shiny purple small nails. So I was looking at them and thinking about what I could do with them. And then all of a sudden I heard my dad going, Greg, it's time to go. And so absentmindedly, I grabbed a handful of nails in my hand and stuffed them down in my pocket. We got back home and we were talking, and I said, hey, Dad, look at these nails I got. He's like, Greg, you stole those nails. We didn't pay for those. We have to go back and apologize. I was not a fan of doing that. I didn't want to go back and say I was sorry. But like any good parent, he made me do that. And obviously the drive back to the hardware store was a lot longer than the one there. I remember just in the store looking around for this gentleman, and I was shuffling around, my head was down, and I finally found him. I mumbled an apology. I said, hey, I'm really sorry. I stole your nails. I'll pay you, yada, yada. And to my surprise, he thanked me for being honest. He said, young boy, you're an honest person. Thank you for doing that. And you know what? The nails are on the house. And by the way, you can even have more. Come over here. Let's look at some other nails. So he paid me this really nice compliment for being honest, and I didn't know how to react. It was awkward. It was weird. I tried to deflect. And then in hindsight, what I should have said, I said, you should actually thank my dad because he's the one who got us into this whole mess. So that was the first real memory I have of someone paying me an honest, genuine comment with thank you. And I didn't know what to say. I think anybody else, by show of hands, have you ever gotten a compliment and you're like, don't thank me, or try to deflect it? Okay, I see head nodding. And so I never really knew how to do that. And I did some research, and a study out of Harvard was saying that a lot of the times that we feel that discomfort or that awkwardness is because of our own self-esteem. We don't feel like we deserve praise from somebody else, so we try and deflect it. But the study also showed that people, when we do take a compliment and appreciate it, it can actually rewire our brains so that we build more self-esteem. And when we do learn how to take a compliment, there isn't any more of that awkwardness. There's more conversation, there's more bonding, because someone paid us a really nice compliment, and we in turn said, you're welcome. And Billy Joel taught me how to smile, pause, and say you're welcome. And then the conversation continues to go because you've accepted the compliment that you've given them. You haven't poo-pooed on it. You haven't turned it away or shifted it to somebody else. Later on, out of college, I was selling hockey in Seattle. This was before the Kraken. It was for a junior team, and we played in the old Key Arena, which hosted the Supersonics and monster trucks and live concerts. I found out that my hero, Billy Joel, was playing a sold-out show. And because we worked in the same building, the team played in the same building, I had access. I knew what time sound check was going to be. Conveniently, I had things to do in the arena at 3:15 when Billy and the boys were doing the sound check. And there was probably 8 or 10 people. I don't know if they were crew or other fans, and we were just standing right at the stage, like literally 10 feet from Billy Joel, and he started a sound check. And he went to each person and asked them their name and what their favorite song was. And I was like, oh my God, this is way better than a concert. It was free. We were right there. And the guy next to me, he said his name. And Billy was like, what's your favorite song? He said, I really like Elvis. So Billy Joel played an Elvis song for this guy. And then he looked at me and he said, what's your name? And I said, Greg. And he said, your favorite song? I said, you're going to hate me, but it's Piano Man. He goes, yep, I hate you. But here you go. Here's Piano Man for Greg. And he started playing, and obviously it turned into karaoke, and all 10 or 12 of us were standing there singing at the end of the song. I was just so overwhelmed. I can't believe it. I'm living a dream. Thank you so much. He paused, he smiled, he looked right at me, and he goes, Greg, you're welcome. That's when I realized that's all we need to do. I felt so incredible that my hero said you're welcome and taught me how to take a compliment. I've been working on this for the last 3 or 4 months, and most people that I talk to are like I was. And still, at times, when I get a compliment, at times I default to, oh, it's awkward. And like, no, I got to say you're welcome. And then once you do that, the conversation starts. And this was really important to me because I probably got the biggest compliment in my life in a very long time that I can remember. I talk about WorkHappy and how do we talk about mental health and how do we reach out and get help. About 6 months ago, I made a post one morning on Facebook. It was 4 words. It just said, you matter to me. It was a purple background. And I practically forgot about it. There wasn't many likes or anything or any comments until a couple of days later. A friend of mine wrote, thank you so much, Greg, for all the inspirational posts. The one you sent the other day, you matter to me, really made a huge impact on my life. And she went on and say that she was struggling at work. Her kid was struggling with learning disabilities in school and just going through a really tough time. She said, life has just got so bad. I had a plan to end my life. Now I'm obviously crying. She said, I saw your post the other morning and thought to myself, I matter to Greg. And I didn't go running that day. From there, we had a conversation and she was able to get counseling. She's doing wonderful now. But I sat there and I knew exactly what to do. I just typed, you're welcome. Then the next message was, hey, let's connect. Let's have a phone call. It was just 2 simple words to respond to this person, how they were feeling. The lesson is that words matter. People are all struggling. And if we just take that time to say, please, and thank you, and you're welcome, it can mean the world to many people. And in this case, she actually decided not to go running that day. Does anyone have any questions? Is there something that you say or you do when somebody compliments you to respond to a compliment?
Hey, Greg, this is Tom. You matter. Thank you.
Thanks, buddy. You too.
I'm terrible at accepting compliments. And I normally try to push it back on them and said, no, I'm not that great, but you are. And it falls flat. And I probably shouldn't do that. I wrote this down. You're welcome. So
awesome. And that's great, Tom. And you're not alone. Times I forget what to say. But that study out of Harvard was saying over 75% of people don't know what to say. And then it gets awkward and weird. But what I've learned and what the research I've done, once we say you're welcome or however you want to respond and don't deflect, then that conversation, like you said, you matter too. And I want to thank you for what you do, right? That can follow, but it just makes the conversation a lot easier. And then you don't have that awkwardness and the other person doesn't have that awkwardness of going, I just thanked him. And he's saying, don't thank me. So it's awesome. We all struggle with it. And that's why I talk about it to help people. So there's more welcomes. Did you have something to say, Emily?
I was just gonna say, I try to say, just say thank you
Okay.
whenever someone gives me a compliment.
Yeah.
But I often deflect and try to make it like it's not that big of a deal. It wasn't, or that I don't know, that I'm not that good or whatever. But I do try to consciously just say thank you for that. But
yeah, for sure.
it doesn't always work out that way.
And how do you feel when you do say thank you or try to deflect? What are the emotions that you feel when you try to deflect versus say thank you?
I don't know. I think when I'm deflecting, I'm trying to be humble. That was a value growing up, to be humble about things and not be prideful. So it's hard to give myself credit sometimes.
Yeah. But the more we do it, the easier it gets, right? It's
Yeah.
just like anything else. It becomes a habit. I think habits are usually formed within 28 times of repetition.
Yeah.
And sometimes we default, but not all the time. So, but yeah, and that's a great way. Thank you. Because if somebody says, you know, to me, hey, I really like your haircut, and I say, you're welcome. But I could say thank you to that. It just
Yeah.
depends. Thank you and welcome can be interchangeable.
I have been a homemaker for the past 20 something years, and I've just recently rejoined the workforce.
Okay.
And I feel like I'm doing a good job, and I'm being told that I'm doing a good job. That's where I'm having trouble. Even though I know I'm doing well, I try to deflect
Okay.
that professional stuff. If
Yeah.
I'm volunteering somewhere and someone gives me a compliment, I'll say, oh, I love doing this. Thank you, but I love doing this. But professionally, it's really hard for me not to deflect for some
Okay.
reason. I don't know why.
And maybe it's just habit. And I recently listened to Mel Robbins' podcast, and she was saying in the morning while she's brushing her teeth, she'll give herself a high five in the mirror, right? Greg, you're great. Greg, you're going to do well today. Greg, you're good at your job. And she says if we do that enough and that becomes a habit, then when people thank us at the job, it'll be, oh, you're welcome, or
Yeah.
thank you for the thank you,
Mhm.
whatever it is. I think words, the older I get, the more words matter, but I totally get where you're coming from. It seems professionally, it's even harder than if it's socially or volunteering or that kind of thing for a charity.
Yeah.
Do you have anything to add, Carol?
I do. I grew up with "you're welcome," and I'm a little stymied by Gen Z and the answer to to any sort of compliment. Okay. But I feel some of the same things that your other guests are sharing in humility, or I didn't think it was that much, or gosh, it's just my job.
Yeah.
And what I learned to do was to take that and turn it into the reward, a recognition for the person saying thank you. Wow, thank you. Oh, you're so welcome. That means a lot to me that you appreciate that.
I wanted to echo what Carol was saying. We also have a chance when you get a compliment, you have an opportunity to provide some reinforcing feedback to that person. Maybe they'll do it more. Maybe they'll be more inclined to acknowledge and recognize simple acts of kindness in the future. It's a little opportunity to pay it forward in a good way. If somebody pays me a compliment, I have a chance to say, thanks, that I appreciate hearing that. It's nice to be acknowledged because that's what you're doing to the person as well.
That's great as well too. And the more we do this, it's like the old rock in a pond, it ripples out and more people can be happier. If anybody has any questions or a follow-up call, I'm always happy to jump on a Zoom or a phone call. I put in the chat there my calendar. So if you would like to schedule a call, I'm happy to do that as well too. Again, I appreciate you all being here. If you have any friends or if your organization, this is something that would benefit them, have them sign up because the next one's going to be in May. All right, everybody. Thank you again. Have a wonderful Wednesday. And anytime I can help, please let me know. But I appreciate you and have a great day.
Have a good one. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
You're welcome. See, there you go. You're welcome.
Bill, get down.